There are moments in history that don't need commentary. Moments where silence carries more weight than 1,000 words. Where a single gesture redefines respect. Where ego meets mastery, and the world holds its breath. This is one of those moments. A dimly lit boxing ring. Las Vegas, 1974. There's sick cigar smoke and the Humo fan to Sebastian. Two worlds colliding under flickering stadium lights. On one side, a man who moved like water, fluid, unpredictable, impossibly fast. On the other, a man built like granite, a champion foe in the fires of heavyweight warfare, fists that attract legends, a jaw that had never truly broken. Bruce Lee, Joe Frazier, philosopher and gladiator, dragon and bull, no cameras rolling for the world, no broadcasters, use a private ring, a handful of witnesses, and the kind of tension that makes your ribs feel too tight for your lungs. Lee steps through the ropes, 5'7", 135 pounds soaking wet. His body sculpted not from bulk, but from precision. Every muscle fiber delivered, every sinew loaded spring. Black training pants, no shirt. His skin glistens under the overhead lights, shadows carving definition across his chest and abdomen like a living anatomy chart. And moves to the center. Doente bounce. Doente shadow box. Use the stance. Hands loose at his ears. Eyes half closed. Breathing so controlled you could hear the fan whistle overthrow his nostrils. Across from him, Joe Frazier leans against the corner post. 6 feet tall. 215 pounds of scar tissue and bad intentions. His shoulders roll forward slightly. Feet posture, even at rest. The kind of body that's absorbed punishment and answer back with annihilation. His nickname wasn't smoking, Joe for nothing. And moved forward like a freight train. Slipping punches, digging hooks into ribs until opponents crumble. He beaten Muhammad Ali. De Ali, March 1971. Madison Square Garden. 15 rounds of pure brutality. The kind of fight that has both men a decade in one night. Frazier's left hook sent Ali to the canvas in the 15th round, a moment test into boxing immortality. And now is looking at this martial artist, this movie star, this man who then never stepped into a professional ring, never taken a punch from a heavyweight, never felt what it's like when a sledgehammer wrapped in leather resets your internal compass. Frazier smirks, not cruel, used confident, the smirk of a man who knows his craft. Was ben baptized in pain and emerger anointed. You really wanna do this, Bruce? His voice is gravel and honey. Respectful, but tinged with disbelief. Ledo enter respond immediately. He opens his eyes fully. Dark, depthless. The kind of Gaza doente challenge. It penetrates. Sistro bravado, past muscle, into the machinery of intent. It come to learn, Joe, and maybe to show you something. The words hang in the air, soft, almost humble, but underneath, Teresiron. Frazier pushes off the corner. His trainer rubs his hands, methodical, practice, the ritual of war. Guite tape, layer after layer, each strip a promise of impact. Then the gloves. Cisterns the pillows a cold steel cabin as carry placer correctly. Ledo ente glove up. It tapes his nucleus lightly, barely enough to hold the skin together. No padding, no protection. Use raw nuclear and bone. Someone in the small crowd, a promoter, maybe a journalist, whispers to his companion, "This is insane. Frazier's gonna kill him." Another voice, quieter, or less about to do something we've never seen before. The referee, an older man, weathered by decades in the sport, steps between them. He looks at Lee, then at Frazier. His expression is traveled. Gentlemen, this is sparring. Like contact. We were not trying to make headlines. We were not trying to... Lee raises a hand. Understood. Frazier nods, but his eyes say something different. His eyes say, "I've never pulled a punch in my life, and I'm not starting now. The bell hasn't rung yet. There is no bell. Use the moment when movement begins." Lee shifts his weight to his back leg. His lead hand extends, fingers loose, wrist cocked. The stance is alien to Frazier, side-on, narrow, economical. No wasted space. No unnecessary exposure. Frazier squares up, orthodox, Left foot forward. Chin tuck. Glove sig. The way is tool for a hand if I eats. The way that's mother millions. The way that's broken men. They circle. Frazier moves fierce. A jab. Not tentative, committed. His lead hand fires out. A piston of leather and intent. I'm not Lee's face. Lee's head isn't there. It's 2 inches to the right. The jab passes through empty air, and in that fraction of a second, so fast that the witnesses will argue about it later. Will swear they saw different things. Lee's lead hand flicks out. Not a punch. A touch. Fingertips brushing Frazier's extended glove, redirecting it further offline. Frazier resets. His eyes narrow. A feints a jab, then throws across. Real power veined it. The kind of punch that turns lights out. Lee squats backward. His spine bends like bamboo in wind, head tilting used beyond the arc of the glove. Frazier's fist passes so close that Lee's hair moves. But no contact. And then Lee's hand is on Frazier's shoulder. Not striking. Just resting there. A whisper of pressure. Guiding. Unbalancing. Frazier stumbles half a step forward. Momentum betrayed by geometry. What the? Before he can finish, Lee is gone. Circled out. Back to center. Hands down. Breathing calm. Frazier's jaw tightens. Is not angry. Not yet. But is surprised. In a lifetime of fighting, is fast every style. Sluggers. Boxers. Counter-punchers. Men beher, faster, mine. But this is something else. He advances. Cuts a ring. Forces Lee toward the corner. Good tactics. Limit space. Make him stand still. Then unload. Lee lets himself be herded. Or seems to. His footwork is minimal. Small adjustments. Weight shifting heel to toe, but is not retreating. Is compressing. Coiling. Frazier closes in. Within rain now. A digs a hook to the body. Textbook. The punch that's broken ribs. Folding men in half. Stolen from lungs. Lee's elbow drops. The oak meets bone. A sharp, ugly sound. Not flesh on flesh, bone on bone. Frazier's glove impacts Lee's elbow and the force redirects downward, dissipating into the canvas. No damage, no penetration. Used physics. Frazier follows with an uppercut. Closer range. Brutal. The punch that ended Jerry Quarry's night in 1969. Lee's torso rotates. 70 degrees. The uppercut grasses his ribs. Contact, but no unsure. No structure to absorb force. It's like punching a revolving door. And then Lee moves. Not a punch. A push. Open palm against Frazier's sternum. It looks gentle. Casual. But Frazier's 215-pound frame slides backward 3 feet, boots skidding on canvas. The room goes silent. Frazier looks down at his chest. Looks back up at Lee. His expression is unreliable. Somewhere between confusion and respect. Maybe a little fear. Though they never admit it. How do you? Structure, Lee says. Softly. You push with your arms. I push with my entire body. Root to branch. Ground to the head. Frazier shakes his head. Not in disagreement. In disbelief. Has spent his life mastering leverage, weight transfer, kinetic chance. But this is a different language. Eddie says, decides to test something. Throws a jab, deliberately slow, watching, studying. Lee intercepts, not with a block, with a trap. His hand snakes over Frazier's glove, fingers wrapping around the wrist, pulling it down and across Frazier's own center line. The movement lacks Frazier's shoulder, rotates his torso, opens his guard. For one heartbeat, Frazier is completely exposed. Chin up, ribs bare, center line undefended. Lee's fist hovers an inch from Frazier's jaw. Don't strike. Use holds. A promise. A demonstration. If this were real. Lee whispers. He releases the trap. Steps back. Frazier's breathing as chant. Deeper, faster. Not from exertion, from relaxation. Es fought men who hit harder. Men who moved faster in straight lines. Varys never fought someone who understood combat at this level. Someone who calls the gaps between moments. Who could turn your own force into sackless. Again, Frazier says, His voice is different now, less confident, more curious. They engage. Distime, Frazier doente all back. Slips into the rhythm that's won in gold medals and world titles. Have havoc, slide-og, cut the ring, pressure, overwhelm, le doente retreat, doente absorb, smoke. Frazier's punches find nothing but around after images. And in the gaps, those microseconds between Frazier's combinations, Le's hands are everywhere. Tapping ribs, brushing the jaw, touching the temple. Never hard, never meant to hit. Used, marking targets. Proof of access. Frazier throws a wild overhand right. Desperation creeping in. The punch has knockout power. The king that's indicators. Le steps inside it. Closer, not farther. The punch salts over his head. And Le's hand, open, fingers together, presses against Frazier's throat. Not crashing, not choking. Used, there. Against the carotid. Against the windpipe. Against the most vulnerable part of the human machine. Here, Le says. Always here. He removes his hand. Steps back. Frazier lowers his gloves. His chest is heavy now. Not from exhaustion. From the weight of understanding. 4-5 minutes. It's thrown everything. Every combination drilled into muscle memory. Every trick learned in smoky gyms and bloody rings. Ande asante landi clean 11. Asante even come close. Meanwhile, Le has touched him at will. Colby strike vital points a dozen times. Colby ended it whenever it chose. The realization settles over Frazier like a cold towel. Attaques abreast. Pulls off his gloves. Lets them drop to the canvas with a heavy tooth. Pauses. Looks at Le. Really looks. Not at a movie star. Not at a martial artist. At a man was master something Frazier spent his life pursuing. The art of not being hit while being able to hit. In it to apologize. Le tilts his head. Confusion flickers across his face. The fears crack in that stoic mask. Apologize? For what? Frazier runs a top hand over his face. Sweat drips from his brow. Spatters on the canvas. He looks around the ring. At the handful of witnesses. At his trainer standing as like a bed in the corner. At the ropes that suddenly feel like the walls of a classroom instead of a battlefield. Before we started, he didn't take you seriously. His voice is quiet now. Raw. Stripped of bravado. He saw you in the movies. Saw you doing your forms, your philosophy stuff. And he stops himself. Shakes his head. He thought you were used another actor playing tough. That is was a show business. He gestures at the ring, at the space between them where the impossible use happened. He thought he'd teach you what a real fight feels like. Showed you the difference between choreography and combat. Maybe wrapped you up a little. Not to hate you, but to remind you where you stood in the order of things. The words hand heavy, honest. The kind of confession that caused something. And then you? Frazier trails off, looks down at his hands. Hands that have broken jaws, crumbled ribs, stabbed hearts maybe through sheer concussive force. You made me feel like a beginner. Like I've been doing this wrong my whole life. Le is silent for a long moment. The overhung lights zoom. Somewhere in the building, a door closes. The sound echoes. You haven't been doing it wrong, Joe. Le's voice is soft. Teacher, not Victor. You've mastered your art. Perfectly. You're a champion for a reason. What judo works. It's devastatingly effective. But, Le continues, stepping closer, you've mastered one dimension of combat. Power. Aggression. Forward pressure. In boxing, within those rules, with those gloves, in that square circle, you're a god. Untouchable. He gestures to the space between them. What is so you isn't better. It's used different. It's what happens when you remove the rules. When you train for the street, not the ring. When you can strike any target, from any angle, with any part of your body. When there is no belt to save you, no rounds to recover, no referee to break the clinch. Frazier listens, really listens. His eyes, dark, intense, scarred from 1,000 sparring sessions, are locked on Le's. In your world, Le says, you destroy me, 3-minute rounds, 10-11 gloves, points for clean punches, evolving telas, your conditioning, your punch resistance, your ability to take the damage and keep coming. You don't have that. One clean shot from you and I'm done. E pauses. Let's that through settle. But in the street, in a real fight, no rules, no protection, everything changes. Range changes. Targets change. The entire geometry of violence shifts. And that's what I train for. Not a sport. Survival. Frazier nods slowly. His jaw clenches. The tension that's been coiled in his shoulders since the first exchange begins to relax. You know what scares me? He says quietly. It's not that you're faster. I've fought fast guys. It's not that you hit different targets. I've trying to protect my body, my head, all of it. It looks up, meets less eyes. It's that you see things you don't. You're reading me like a book. I'm blind to it. Everything is through. You're reading where it was going. You were waiting, not reacting, anticipating. Like you were living 3 seconds ahead of me. Les smiles. Small. Genuine. That's not supernatural, Joe. That's use pattern recognition. You telegraph. Everyone does. A shifting way before the jab. A dip in the shoulder before the hook. A bristle before the cross. Your body announces your intentions before your fists arrive. Can that be fixed? It can be minimized, refined, but it requires learning everything you've been taught. Boxing has rules, rhythms, patterns, acceptable techniques. Those patterns make you predictable. Efficient within the system, yes, but predictable. Frazier is quiet, processing. His trainer approaches cautiously, water bottle in hand. Frazier grabs him off. I come here thinking it showed you what real power looks like, Frazier says. A rueful smile cracks his face. Turned out you were showing me what real skill looks like. You have a skill, Joe. Incredible skill. What you do. Cut in the ring, working the body, breaking men down round by round. That's art. Brutal art, but art nonetheless. Then what do you call what you used did? Lee considers. His eyes drift to the ring ropes, to the empty seats beyond, to some mile distance where philosophy lives. Efficiency, economy, the ability to do the most with the less. In Chinese, we call it kunedo, the way of the intercepting fist. It's not about meeting force with force. It's about redirecting, absorbing, neutralizing, being water. Water, Frazier repeats. The word feels strange in his mouth. Smell of fire and iron. Water is for drinking, for cooling burns, for washing away blood, not for fighting. Water straps itself to the container, Lee explains. It don't exist, but it's also the most powerful force on earth. Given time, water cuts through mountains. It rules a stone. It's soft and yielding, yet nothing can stand against it forever. And you fight like water. It try to, it don't always succeed. But that's the goal, to be formless, shapeless. So that when you punch, there is nothing there to punch. And when you're exposed, I'm already inside your guard, touching the targets that matter. Frazier sits on the middle rope, lets his legs dangle outside the ring. He looks exhausted, but not from physical exertion, from mental overload, from having his understanding of combat inverted in 10 minutes. Bruce, he says after a long silence, I need to ask you something. Go ahead. If we fought for real, no rules, no holding back, what would happen? Lee don't answer immediately. He walks to the corner, picks up a towel, wipes his face. When he speaks, his voice carries no ego, no bravado, used assessment. Depends on the first exchange. If you catch me early, if you slip up, if I'm slow, if you misjudge the distance, you the knock me unconscious. Maybe kill me. Your power is catastrophic. Even felt the shock from your punches passing by. They don't need to land clean to the damage. Frazier nods. Appreciates the honesty. But Lee continues, if I'm sharp, if you maintain distance, it control the rhythm. It attack your legs, your knees, your eyes, your throat. Targets you're not trying to protect. It made you fall before you ever got close enough to land. Fast? Very fast. Real fights, life or death, don't last minutes. They last seconds. First mistake is usually the last. Jesus, Frazier mutters. He runs both hands through his hair, leans back against the corner post. I've been doing this since I was a kid. Gym in Philly, every day, bleeding and sweating and breaking myself down to build back up. I taught in fighting. Taught it in every style, every trick. You know boxing. You're a master of boxing. That's not small, Joe. That's monumental. Most people never master anything. But it's not a no. It's a no for what it's designed for. What combat is bigger than anyone's system. Boxing, wrestling, judo, karate, they real pieces. Incomplete by themselves. Beautiful, but incomplete. Frazier looks at him. So what are you? Some kind of mixed martial artist. Lee laughs. Genuine. The tension breaks. I don't know what I am. I'm still figuring it out. I take from everything. Wing Chun got me structure. Western boxing got me footwork and head movement. Fencing got me distance management. Wrestling got me takedown defense. I'm used, absorbing, adapting. Like water, Frazier says again. Distime. There is understanding in his voice. Like water. They sit in silence. The gym feels different now. Sacred, almost. A space where egos come to clash and instead phone communion. Frazier's trainer finally approaches. Joe, we sold. He was a minute, Frazier says. Not harsh. Gentle. The trainer retreats. Bruce, I want to ask you something else. Anything. Teach me. Lee blinks. Teach you? Yeah. Whatever that was, that interception thing, that reading opponent thing. I want to learn it. I don't want to stop boxing. Boxing's my life. But I want to see what you see. Feel what you feel. Understand combat the way you do. Lee is quiet. His expression shifts. Surprise. Then consideration. Then something like respect. Joe, you're at the top of your field. You're a world champion. Guarido, it might mess with your boxing. Might make you hesitate. Might slow you down in the ring because you're thinking too much instead of reacting. I don't care. Frazier's voice is firm. Resolved. Ive won the title. Ive beaten Ali. Ive done what I set out to do. But tonight, you saw it meterse another level. Only Cantun said that. Cantun know it. Lee studies him. Sees the hunger, the humility, the willingness to be a beginner again, even at the peak of mastery. All eight, Lee says finally, but not here, not in the ring. We start small. Sensitivity drills. Chisao, learning to feel instead of see, learning to react without thinking. It may be frustrating. You reuse to power. This is about subtlety. When do we start? Tomorrow, early. Before you rug work. Frazier grins, the fierce genuine smile since they stepped into the ring. Tomorrow, they shake hands. Not the performative grip of press conferences. A real handshake. Fighter to fighter. A student to teacher. Man to man. As Frazier climbs through the ropes, he pauses. Looks back. Hey Bruce? Yeah? I'm sorry. For real. For underestimating you. For thinking you were useless on movies. For disrespecting your art. Les shakes his head. You didn't disrespect it. You tested it. That's what warriors do. And in testing it, you saw me where I'm still lacking. Your power, your conditioning, your art. Those are things you need to respect more. So thank you. Frazier nods. Climbs down. His arms surrounds him. Questions flying. But grabs them off. Is not ready to talk yet. Not ready to process what just happened. The next morning, before dawn, they met in a small studio in Chinatown. No ring. No gloves. Use bare feet on hardwood and the smell of incense. Lee teaches Frazier the basics of Chun Chisao. Sticky hands. It's humbling. Frazier was broken man with his fists. Can't feel the subtle pressures. Can't predict the direction of force. His hands are too tense. His mind too cluttered with boxing orthodoxy. But he persists. Days turn to weeks. Weeks turn to months. Frazier never abandons boxing. He can't, won't he? VAR begins to integrate smaller tells in his punches, better sensitivity in the clinch, an ability to read rhythm that wasn't there before. In his next fight, against Jericho in Junio 1974, commentators note something different. Frazier seems more patient, more economical. Es still the same devastating punch, but there is a new efficiency. Les guasti motion, better timing. He stops scoring in 5 rounds. In the locker room afterward, a reporter asks about chance. Frazier smiles. Don't elaborate. You says, I've been training with a friend, learning to see differently. The reporter presses for details. Frazier stays quiet. Some lessons aren't meant for headlines. Years later, after Frazier's career ends, after the wars with Allianz Foreman, after the toy of combat cars permanent trenches in his face unfolding his memories, ella tells the story. Only 10. Only when no time has passed that ego no longer matters. Ella described that night in Las Vegas. The ring. The impossible speed. The feeling of being dismantled without being hit. The humility of realizing that mastery in one domando and temean mastery of all demands. And ella say this. Bruce Lee saw me that strength isn't enough. That being tough isn't enough. That even when you're the best in the world at what you do, there is always someone out there who sees the game differently. Was playing by rules you don't even know exist. Ella pause, staring to the middle distance. He didn't use beat me that night. He taught me, and I'm grateful. Because the best fighters aren't the ones who never lose. They were the ones who learn from every encounter. Who stay humble enough to be students, even when they were champions. As for Lee, he never spoke publicly about that night. Never boasted. Never said it to elevate himself or diminish Frazier. In private, with close students, he referenced it as a reminder. Even the strongest opponent has gaps. But respect the strengths. Respect the dedication. Power born from 10,000 hours of suffering deserves reverence, even as you find was around it. He also meet his own limitations. If you account me, even 11, it could be been over. What he did wasn't a robbery. It was calculated risk. And risk always carries consequences. The footage from that night, if it ever existed, never surfaced. No photos, no documentation. Use the memories of those who were there and the stories they tell in whispers. Fade out. In the end, it wasn't about who won or lost. It was about the masters recognizing each other across the void of their disciplines. About ego dissolving in the face of true skill. About the carry to apologize when you were mishooded. And about the wisdom to learn, even when you were already conquered the world. Because the greatest fighters aren't defined by their victories. They are defined by what they do after the fight ends. By whether they close their fists and cling to pride, or open their hands and embrace transformation. Then, the real battle isn't against the opponent in front of you. It's against the limits you have placed on your own understanding. Break those limits, and you don't use become a better fighter. You become a better human.